Good evening. For 10 weeks now, this programme has reported the effects of the conflict in Kosovo. The dispossessed refugees and burned villages on one side, the bridges and power stations destroyed by NATO on the other. Tonight we have a first-hand account of what it's like to be under the bombs, some of the most dramatic pictures of the war. Our Europe correspondent Bill Neely was in a group of reporters in the front line of a NATO attack inside the Albanian border.
Warplanes in combat above Albania and now for the first time hitting Albania itself. Albania is NATO's ally. It has now also become NATO's target. The first evidence came this morning. Bunkers a few hundred yards inside Albania bombed. Deep craters nearby. The debris of missiles bearing US markings reading laser seeker and fin-guided bomb. On a live ITN broadcast, I showed this evidence and described the NATO jets above.
Well, you can't hear it, but there are plenty of NATO planes really circling or moving in above us all the time.
30 minutes later, the jets struck where we'd been standing.
That was clearly a warplane which swooped down and hit here just a few seconds ago, and we're about to leave because there is a chance that it will come again.
And it did. By now we had driven half a mile away, about a dozen journalists scattering as the bombs fell. But again, the warplanes came. We could see the planes clearly, some of them American A10 Warthogs. 5 minutes on, and as Albanian villagers evacuate their homes, another strike deeper still into Albania. Once again we fled, once again the planes came. This time we filmed from inside the armoured vehicle. Fearing our cars were attracting the planes, we stayed out, and the planes came back. Amid it all, refugees running the gauntlet of a bombing run. Why are NATO bombing Albania, he says? They should be hitting the Serbs in Kosovo.
We've now had 5 strikes here in about half an hour. The NATO planes, I can hear them above me, still circling, searching for targets. And in my mind, there is absolutely no doubt that the planes that have targeted us are from NATO.
Some days as a journalist, or as anyone else caught up in this war, you have to count yourself lucky. And today I do, because today we were all caught up in the targeting of Albania. Bill Neely, ITN, on the Kosovo-Albanian border.
And tonight I spoke to Bill Neely in Albania. Bill, it must have been a terrifying business for you.
Well, it was terrifying to have planes attacking us in broad daylight. The noise as the missiles screeched in above us was absolutely terrifying, and the first impact was really very, very close indeed. After that, it was just a question of either running or driving as far away as possible, but we still knew that the planes were above us, circling and searching for the target, and we knew at one point the target had been us. At one point I was hit on the leg by a piece of flying rock, but it could have been so very much worse. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that was flying around. Shrapnel, bits of bomb, some of this incredibly jagged and red hot at the time that it was flying through the air. So it was really astonishing that no one was more seriously injured.
How on earth could NATO planes have ended up doing something like this?
Well, it's a question I would very much like to ask NATO myself. They targeted the same area yesterday in low light, but today it was absolutely clear. The pilots had circled around for hours. They could quite clearly see us. They had targeted very precisely yesterday. So why did it happen? There is the possibility, of course, that NATO did this deliberately, but I certainly think NATO has some questions to answer. Why did it target a country and people in it which has been its staunchest ally in this region, and indeed a country where many of its own troops are based?
Bill Neely in Albania, thank you. And the ITN team with Bill Neely were Eric Fuchs, Fred Nirak and Ben Scotchbrook. Well, NATO said tonight it was still investigating that incident. Also tonight, the commander of Yugoslav forces in Kosovo said their losses, despite all the NATO airstrikes, had been minimal, less than 1%.